Hello, and welcome to Movie of the Year, the only podcast on the internet that has the science and the screaming to determine what is the single greatest movie of any given year. Over on the mothership show, the real show, the one that Tompkins is not allowed on, we are working on the year 1985. And so Tompkins gave me $50 to start a spinoff show just about the horror of 1985 because there is so much of it. Tonight's movie is Fright Night. It is the second biggest blockbuster horror movie of 85. It's about vampires, and probably, I think we'll decide throughout the course of the show, nothing else. My name is Ryan, and I will be your host for the evening. And the challenger tonight, the big special guest, Sam Wineman is here. Sam, how are you?
I'm doing all right. Thank you for having me.
Why are you here? And I should have asked that nicer. Why? Like, what makes you think that you can just come on to a movie about vampires and queerness in 1985 and think that oh yeah, I can talk about this?
Well, I probably know more about it than you do, so I think
We'll see. It's a competition show, and I'm in control of the points, so I will give myself a lot of points.
Fair. I am a queer horror director. I write and direct queer horror films. And right now, I'm directing a film for Shudder, and it's the follow-up to Horror Noir. That was about black representation in horror, and this is about queer representation. So this is my specialty.
Have you found it hard to find examples in the history of horror film about queer stuff?
No.
No,
That's
not at all?
I mean, this is my whole. This is like. I mean, you look at Nosferatu, and that director was queer, or I mean, it starts at the very beginning, and we've been there all along, and so that's what it's about.
I feel like
I have have you found that horror? Do you have a long relationship with horror movies? Was this something you were into as a teen?
I watched my first horror movie when I was 5. I was super into slashers because I would sneak the tapes, tape them off the TV and watch them at night.
Yeah.
And I was super into Tales from the Crypt. And so, yeah, I've been obsessed with horror since I was a kid. I wasn't good at a lot of stuff that other guys were. So sports and I don't know, sports. And so with horror, it's if I could sit through a horror movie and be brave enough to do that, then I had everybody else beat. So for me, it was kind of a superpower, you know?
Yeah. Interesting.
Also, Tompkins is here.
Yeah.
I'll be the host tonight, and also Tompkins is here.
Yep, I'm here. I am straight and don't know much about horror, so I'm very excited to talk over Sam all night.
Wow, it'll be like every meeting I've taken since I moved to LA.
Got a lot of opinions, though.
I think that most of our guests, if not being gay, have been women, and Tompkins has been talking over them the entire time, so this should be no problem for him. But yeah, every time I, do a deep dive into horror, whether it's a particular year or subgenre of horror, it becomes clear of how awesome it is to, I can't tell my story. I have to bury it in some accepted genre, and then I will tell it. And the people who I'm telling my story to will get it, but then everybody else will be like, "Oh, that was scary," and a horror movie.
Exactly. And that's been happening for so long. I mean, Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, James Whale, was hiding these things in there. And, every decade we've got different examples. And Fright Night is, we'll get into it.
So we are definitely going to get into it. It would be so weird to invite Sam onto the show and not get into it a little bit. But just, guys, overall as a movie, right, just as an 85 horror flick, what do we think? How did Fright Night do?
I enjoyed this a lot. I also this movie has such a head start for me because after the train wreck that was Part 5 New Beginning.
My goodness.
Yeah, to watch a movie that is at least competent, and I think this is more than competent, and that is kind of taking pot shots at slashers is such a breath of fresh air. I had a great time during this.
Sam, what do you think of the movie overall?
It's good. I mean, it's not my favorite, But because I have to stand up for slashers, I stand slashers, and then you said that, now I'm like, okay, my like 9 was like, now it's a 7, but no, it stands up. You know, it's funny. I didn't like it growing up, and upon a rewatch as an adult, it's fire. I love it.
Yeah,
It is weird. Like, I'm not sure if it's for adults who have such lonely lives that they have to rewatch movies in order to do a podcast, or for kids who are like trying to sneak that horror movie in when their parents are asleep. Like, it does sort of like blend those two things
in a very 80s way.
Yeah, and yeah, like, oh no, like, we want to be this, but we want to be another thing, and then that's what I think that we're going to argue tonight is, like, was it successful at all of the stuff it attempted at the exact same time? But Sam, you said that you were a slasher fan. Have you seen Friday the 13th 5: A New Beginning?
Yeah, that's my least favorite Friday the 13th.
Okay, I think it's my least favorite movie of all time.
I'm sorry, what?
I'm not sure if I've ever seen a movie worse than that movie.
Yeah. I'm wearing a Jason X t-shirt right now. Part 10
Oh,
is,
hell yeah.
like, if I'm going to go bad on a slasher, then I want that kind of bad. I want it so bad it's good, like over the top camp. But I don't want boring. And Friday the 13th Part 5 is just boring.
I couldn't believe how torture even in like a full theater, the crowd would be like, let's go see something else. This is stupid.
Mm-hmm.
It's like edging, because if it was any worse, it would start to get like so bad it's good, but it hovers just above that the whole time.
Yeah. It's a trudge.
All right, let's be done with A New Beginning forever, please. And yeah, let's jump into it. This is a competition show, so Tompkins, Sam, you guys will be competing against each other for your knowledge of the movie and my affection. So if you didn't watch the movie, just compliment me and you will get points. When we come back, Fright Night. In the summer of 1985, Columbia Pictures snuck a tiny $7 million picture that nobody had any hope for, called Fright Night, into the theaters. It went on to gross $30 million, become the second biggest horror movie of the year behind next week's Nightmare on Elm Street 2, and a cult favorite, spawning sequels, remakes, documentaries, comic books, and an Amiga computer game where you play as Jerry Dandridge, running around the mansion punching half statues with boobs hanging out, or as I call them, busts. The movie tells the story of Charlie Brewster, a horror fan whose movie knowledge leads him to believe that his neighbor is a vampire. Eventually, Charlie has no choice but to call on Peter Vincent, a late-night movie host and horror movie actor, to help him get the vampire. Along with Evil Ed and Marcy Darcy, Charlie is able to stop the terrifyingly named Jerry Dandridge and save the neighborhood. At one point early on in Fright Night, Peter Vincent, the horror actor turned TV show host played by Roddy McDowall, he bemoans the end of an era, saying that bullshit teenagers like the main character only care about horror movies that have demented men in hockey masks murdering former virgins. Does Fright Night put its money where its mouth is and bring back a sense of old-school horror in the middle of the 80s? Or do you guys think it's just delivering the same trash it's making fun of?
I think it definitely delivers. It's a very fun movie. It's very fun in a way that is distinctly different from slasher movies. And I can also see how, even if you love slasher movies, this period in time might be a point where you're like a little inundated with that. And going back to something like a little bit more old school, I think is a neat move here.
So you're saying that like people who are getting Friday the 13th every 2 months might like a little break from that?
Yeah.
Never.
Especially to the degree, like we talked about it in, I hate how much it's such a bad movie that it's going to leak into every other podcast we do for eternity. But we talked about it in that, like it becomes like very soulless and rote, and you're just watching this like series of murders with no real suspense. Even it's like, why am I doing this? Why am I here? And I do think that this movie, it kind of takes like a more 80s sense of like horror. Like there's some really good horror stuff in here, but it also brings like a more old school like, you know, black and white movie monster like fun back to it.
Well, let's show the work on that one. Like, where do you guys see the old school universal? This is somebody who has like had his horror movie education.
So I actually disagree. I think that where I see that perspective, it's just, I think it's actually doing something really fresh that hasn't been done before. It's really negating what happened with the old school vampires, because you've got like, when you look at Nosferatu or Dracula, they're not exactly sexy. Do you know what I mean? And then you hit the 1970s and you have all these lesbian vampires who are just like, you know, beautiful women who just want to bite each other's necks and then kiss. Not always in that order. And then when you hit the 1980s, we have the birth of like a new kind of vampire, and he's like hot, and he's you're not supposed to hang out with him, and your mom's gonna warn you about him, and that literally happens in this movie.
Try to fuck him.
Yeah. Or both.
That was a legitimate question for me at one point. I was like, is the vampire gonna have sex with his mom to
Which it's the same thing in the Lost Boys. Like Diane Weiss is like, oh man, this guy, I don't care if he's a vampire. Let's fucking do this.
Like, those old school vibes, I'm feeling them now, because it's like, this is definitely like an 80s, like a mid-80s horror film that's not a slasher. I mean, it feels very of its time, and it does have the nod to the old school horror because of the host, but actually, I think that in acknowledging it, in being smart about it, it just is something different. It's something kind of new.
Yeah, I would agree with that, actually. Yeah, 'cause why not? Yeah, it's like but yeah, the horror elements themselves don't feel retro or anything, but it's surrounded by like a sense of nostalgia that Peter, I'm so fucking bad with names. The other guy, the old guy, Peter Vincent. Yeah. Peter Vincent Pumpkin Eater brings to it, and they have like those clips. Like one of the first scenes you see is just, it's so like beautifully done. It's just this little like throwaway joke as you're seeing the old Peter Vincent movie, and when he does it, you know, where he's like, and now I killed a vampire, he's holding the stake backwards in the shot, and it just has that like old school kind of B movie sloppiness to it. So it like surrounds the more modern horror stuff with this sense of nostalgia in a way that I found appealing.
I mean, maybe it doesn't feel like you know, Dracula or Bride of Frankenstein, but there is this sense that would, at some point, like a decade after this, really start to piss us off of, oh, you know what's good and bad about horror movies, you know? So maybe it's not classic, but it does have that thing that, like, I'm not sure how common that was back then, of, like, horror movies are great and dumb at the same time, and let's see if we could do both.
Yeah.
Which is a little classical.
Yeah, I think it would have been a much worse movie if it just tried to bring back totally, you know, if it tried to be like a totally retro movie or whatever, but it has its like grounding in that earlier stuff, but like acknowledges the new stuff that's happening as well. You know, it's like Twin Shadow makes really good 80s music because he references 80s stuff and brings modern sensibilities into it. He doesn't just wish it was still the 80s.
It's also such a good like excuse or like framework to start your movie of like, we're going to show you what we think a bad horror movie is. Therefore, if any part of this movie's bad, that's just us like making a joke, right? Like, you can't get mad at us. That's all on purpose.
Yeah.
Let's talk about what is actually scary, though. I don't know how many times you guys jumped out of your seat watching this movie, but it seems like the scares come from I'm very nervous about my mom and my girlfriend getting fucked, right? Like, is Jerry Dandridge's handsomeness more scary than his giant teeth?
Basically, yeah.
I mean, that is the danger, right? His sex appeal.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like, I don't know. And like, what are they up to next door? You know, what are these two dudes living together? What, like, is this a danger to the neighborhood?
Or is that the scary part? Like, two men in one house? What is happening to this neighborhood?
I mean,
Yeah.
we're laughing about it, but it kind of is, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
But like, does the movie sort of play it as like, shit, okay, we're vampires. That's totally clear. We don't want people to know that. So I guess we'll say that we're gay. Like, that's the cover up over vampires, right? Is that less scary to people in the 80s than vampires?
I mean,
Well,
I'm, you know, at the risk of dipping my toes too far into the topic, I mean, it kind of is, right? Because in mid 85, if you're tracking AIDS and just being super real about it, like straight up, there's no way to joke about it. So if I say it now, then I can make jokes. But in 81, it appeared, right? And in smaller cases. And by 85, it is a full-blown epidemic that's being ignored, and queer folks are being demonized, particularly gay men. Gay men were the big scary thing. That was terrifying to people. And so, and actually, and politicians, and, you know, just, that was the climate. So you can't, even if this isn't on purpose, you can't live in an era where that is the big bad and not have your monster reflect the big bad.
Right.
Yeah.
So
let's real quick though, like I do want to talk about that, Sam, but in a little bit. Let's talk about the Tom Holland. And no, like, you fucked it up. Like, you ruined the show. But
well,
it's fine.
I can answer it in a more basic way though, which is like, every time the scares that hit me, Jerry Dandridge appearing scared me, because I think that visually Tom Holland knew what the fuck he was doing. And so his actual appearances were never from where you expect them, and that always lands for me as a horror fan.
Sam. Also, Sam, let's think about it. I asked a question as the host. I set you up for that answer. You answered it perfectly, and then I got mad at you. So who's actually doing the bad job here? Let's talk about Tom Holland, the director, the aficionado, you know, like the person who watched all the Universal stuff. Did you guys see throughout this movie a guy who, you know what, like, I've seen The Birds. I've seen Bride of Frankenstein. I've seen Nosferatu. Did you guys feel where, like, the director had a thumb on, I know what tension or horror is? You could just say no. If you want to say no, just say no.
I think it comes naturally to him, but that's only because I saw him at a Q&A once where he was, like, talking through Chucky, and all he did was, like, rather than, and we were all waiting for this, he had a great person asking him questions and kind of, you know, about horror, and all of his things were, oh, wait, hold on, this is the part where Chucky walks through flour, or whatever. And it's like, I mean, I think he doesn't overthink it.
I thought you meant talking through Chucky like he had a Chucky doll and was doing a ventriloquist thing.
Oh my God, can you imagine? No,
like, who's that? Who's that stand-up comedian with, like, all the racist puppets? I thought he was Jeff Dunhamine on the stage.
Yeah. Because you were like, it comes so naturally to him. I thought you were saying, like, he just really inhabited
it was Sesame
being
Street,
of
but,
Chucky.
you know, with Chucky, for sure. Yeah.
But honestly, like, I read a Reddit AMA with him today, and he really seems to feel very fortunate about his career, you know? And it's like, I don't think he's stupid. I don't think he's bad at his job, but he's not like, I'm a fucking master of the arts and I deserved far more than this. He was like, did you guys see what I did? I made Fright Night. Isn't that awesome?
I think this guy is just instinctually making good horror. It's just, but I don't think he overthinks it. Not as much as his characters do in this movie, you know?
Yeah.
Well, let's go ahead, Tompkins.
Oh, I was just gonna say, just to bring back the slasher comparison for once, you're talking about, like, the Jerry's, like, presence and his entry, like, I think you're right that the movie is often scariest when he's, like, mid, you know, dead center of the frame, very visible, and that's a very interesting contrast with slasher movies, which so often rely on, like, hiding the villain, you know, and, like, the unseen and the unknown.
But yeah, this is like almost like a 60s European film with how, like, I'm just gonna put the villain in the middle and just have him stare for 30 seconds, and I'm into it. Like, when Chris Sarandon is staring at, like, a group of people on a dance floor, I'm freaked out. That's way scarier than, like, somebody crawling up the stairs or whatever, you know? I would say that's his most tense moments. All right, let's take a break, and when we come back, Rushmore.
Mount Rushmore.
That's right, motherfuckers. It's Rushmore time. Instead of designating a mountain of 4 president's heads, we're going to do it to something different. We're going to do it to the single 4 most. So what's the 4 version of the word single?
Quadranmost.
Quadrangle most iconic performances of actors playing actors, which you would think there's almost 0, but it turns out there's a lot. Sam, you are the challenger tonight, so you're going first. What is clearly going on this mountain?
It, without a doubt, is Parker Posey playing Jennifer Jolie, playing Gale Weathers, who was played by Courtney Cox in Scream 3.
There's a lot of meta going on there. There's a lot of layers.
She barters
But
with
I'm gonna
Carrie
put-
Fisher? Come on.
I'm going to put that on the maybe pile. Wow. And if you're listening, Parker, you know why. You know what she did to me.
That is the straightest thing that you've done so far.
Of many.
It only gets worse from here. Tompkins, what do you got?
I'm going to go with a personal favorite first, because I want just a little extra time to argue for this. It's not even like the main character in this, but it is one of the best single scenes in any movie, and so I want it to be recognized somewhere. But Alden Ehrenreich as Hobie Doyle in Hail Caesar.
Ooh, I do love me some of that. I don't know how iconic it is, though.
It's so iconic. It's become a meme.
That scene was so good, we as a country were like, oh, he should play Han Solo. And look how that worked out, Tompkins. What's his name? Toby Dahlright?
Hobie Doyle.
I was close. All right, maybe pile.
All right.
Sam,
Guys,
chance number 2.
Who is Hobie Doyle? Wow. I'm like, this is okay, sorry.
Would that it were so simple is...
Yeah.
Would that it was so simple.
Speaking to completely accessible references, I'm going to go with Meryl Streep.
That's such an insult. God damn it.
I'm going to, I'm going to pivot. Meryl Streep as Madeline Ashton in Death Becomes Her. She has an opening number where, as a narcissist, she sings a song that's like, I see me, and she's fucking amazing.
Oh, Sam.
Yep.
Sammy boy. There's only 2 people I love more than Meryl Streep, and it's Bruce Willis and Goldie Hawn, and you mentioned neither of them. Maybe pile. Tompkins, you're up.
This one, acting can mean many different things, and I think that some acting is more physical than others. It requires you to really inhabit the role with your body. And
Tompkins, I'm not putting Donkey from Shrek on a mountain. I'm just not going to do it, dude. I don't care how many times they bring this up.
Okay, well, if you won't do Donkey, then I instead will suggest Mark Wahlberg as Dirk Diggler in Boogie Nights.
Oh, boy.
He is acting pretty fiercely in those.
Yeah. And so is that prosthetic.
Yeah.
I forgot that porn was movies, and I'm sorry, and he's on, and you get the point.
Porn's movies.
I know, I'm sorry. I already apologized. All right, Sam, you're down. Let's go.
Yeah, so I'm just going to, fuck good choices. Have you guys seen Urban Legend's Final Cut? It's from the year 2000. It's the sequel to Urban Legend's Final Cut.
Is that with Rebecca Gayheart?
So she's in the first one and it has a cameo in the second one. But yeah, it's a sequel to that. So obviously this is not, I'm just going to describe it because it doesn't matter. But there's this actress, Jessica Kaufel or something. She plays this girl, Sandra. And for whatever reason, she just cannot act at any moment in front of the camera. And she's amazing. And she just makes bad horror movies. And she's so lovable. But yeah, Urban Legend's Final Cut.
Is she a stand-up? Did she date Schmidt from New Girl for a little while?
I don't know.
That Jessica Caulfield?
Oh, maybe. I just see this is where my limitations of pop culture end. I'm like, Urban Legend's Final Cut, duh, it's super accessible.
And see, this is where my limitations start because I was like, I'll watch New Girl so I can talk to gay people, and apparently that's not the case. It doesn't work like that. All right, Jessica Caulfield on the baby pile. Tompkins, where are we going?
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna bring it around to I could do a little horror. Ryan, would you agree that one of the hallmarks of a great performance is that you inhabit the role completely?
I swear, if this is a Hallmark movie, I'm gonna freak out, dude. That does not count. Yes, Tompkins, I would say yes.
And would you agree that many of our greatest actors, one Daniel Day-Lewis, for instance, often blur the line between themselves and character because they inhabit the role so completely?
I'm gonna put this on the maybe pile right now, and I don't even know where you're going.
Given that those things are true, I nominate Linda Blair as Pazuzu, the thespian in The Exorcist.
Wow.
Shit, that's pretty good. You know what? Fuck you for me insulting you. That's going on. All right, Sam, you're up.
Okay.
That one.
So I'm going to go a little bit classic. Lauren Bacall, incredible. Everything she serves is it's always too much. Except when it's like a decaf coffee commercial, and then obviously it's not enough. But in The Fan in 1981, she plays this diva. Like, she plays basically herself, but being stalked by a killer. And it's just nonstop middle-aged lady fighting an over-obsessed fan. And I'm into it, especially her Broadway show, which has way too much glitter, sequins, and lights.
Now, is this a different version of The Fan that came out in a different year with different actors?
No, this is its own. I mean, there were a bunch of The Fans, because then even like the next year there was like Dar Fan, and then there was The Fan in the 90s, I think. But yeah, this one's The Fan, the slasher film.
Okay.
With Michael
I'd
Biehn.
love to get...
There was also a swim fan
Lauren
at one point.
Oh,
There was, yes. I'd love to get Lauren Bacall on a mountain, but not right now. Tompkins, go.
Okay, I am going to nominate... I'm just looking through my list at what's great here. Anne Baxter as Eva Harrington in All About Eve. I had trouble deciding which of the two female leads from that.
All right, so why don't we fucking pause for a minute, Tompkins? Let's talk about who your host is, and let's motherfucking think about the movie. And you thought about the movie, and you picked Anne Baxter over other options. Would you like to go again?
No.
All right, on the baby pile. Sam, you're up.
wow.
This is the most maybes we've ever gotten. You're out.
All right.
Yeah, I think that's.
I have a different one, Ryan. I have another.
All right, go.
What about Betty Davis as Margot Channing and All About Eve?
Tompkins, where did you get that? Margot Channing on the mountain, obviously.
I can just throw
right.
out. I have two others. I can just toss them out.
No, I think we're done.
Okay.
Wait. I do have one.
Go ahead.
It's Tori Spelling as Drew Barrymore in the opening of Scream 2 when she.
All right, your mountain is as follows: Dirk Diggler, Pazuzu, Margot Channing, and Parker Posey, because I did not like the amount of respect that Sam lost for me when I said no to that one. That is your Mount Rushmore of actors playing actors. Guys, the big one that you forgot? Anna Scott.
Yeah.
Julia Roberts, Notting Hill. Top 3 movie of all time. When we come back, we're going to get back into Fright Night. Fright Night has become one of the more famous, overtly subtle movies about queer horror. What precisely do we think that the filmmakers are trying to say about the sexual identities of the characters and about homosexuality in the 80s? Tompkins, good luck.
Yeah, I'll start. I will just say quickly, it is really interesting the way that the first scene plays out, where he's about to lose his virginity with his girlfriend and then gets distracted by these two men carrying a coffin into their basement, to the point that he just like completely loses interest in her. I think that's a really interesting starting point for a movie.
Runs into the room with his mother.
Yes.
And then gets distracted.
Yeah, gets distracted from her pretty consistently throughout the movie.
Well, and I mean, as we learn about her, can you blame him?
Yeah.
Really not got much going on.
But I mean, like, that's the crazy thing about this movie, though, is that, like, it's not just about Amy, but it's about, like, Amanda Burse was cast, and I didn't have a childhood with Fright Night, but I did have a childhood. I don't know if you guys can tell by everything that I say or like. I had a childhood filled with Married with Children, and Amanda Burse was, like, didn't play a gay character on TV, but, like, came out before Ellen. Like, she was just like, I'm faking my straightness, and now I direct, and yeah, I'm totally gay.
Yeah.
You know? And, like, there's a lot of that going on in this movie.
It's also interesting that the girlfriend becomes, like, sort of a pawn between the main character and Jerry. Like, because there's that, like, seduction that's going on, but then you realize that, you know, Jerry is only interested in the girlfriend as, like, a tool to bring... God, the main character's name. I really just got to start writing this shit down.
Charlie.
I think it's charming when I do that. He uses... So Jerry uses the girlfriend as a tool to bring Charlie closer. Although the seduction is very real at the same time, which I also...
And one of my favorite parts about the movie, and I don't think I would have noticed, honestly, if it wasn't for Sam coming on the show, because I watched it again today, is Amanda Burse. Amy is like tomboy girl next door the entire movie. And then at a certain point, and there's a lot of reasons to be scared of Amy at a certain point, but what else is going on is that her hair is getting way longer. She has makeup, and she's literally wearing like giant boobs. And the whole time Charlie's like, Peter, fix this, please. Get me out of the situation as fast as possible. I think she wants to have sex with me.
It's such a wild fucking turn with Charlie, because he opens trying to, like, coerce her into having sex with him after she has explicitly said no multiple times. And then, like, immediately, as soon as she does express that, or agree to it, right? That's when he notices the boys next door. And once he clocks them, he cannot, like, he just will never look. There's only one other moment where he looks at a woman in a way where he's interested, and it's the woman in all blue, like the one that's revealed to be a sex worker headed over to there. Like, and I guess the one through the window that Jerry's like hooking up with, which is a little bit of like bi vibes there. But it's just, he is not interested in, I mean, or he is so much more interested in Jerry Dandridge than he is all of the women around him.
But watch the fucking camera in that scene when he's peeping on his neighbor with, and I think these are the only boobs that we get in the movie. And Sam, let me tell you, Tompkins and I going through 85 horror, a lot of boobs, bro. Like, we get boobs all the time, and I think this is it. And the camera goes away from the boobs onto Jerry's orgasmic, about to like bite her on the neck, but just Jerry's like, yeah, and that is what Charlie is interested in.
Yeah, then the camera switches. It's looking at Jerry, and there's this like very, you know, Jerry knows that Charlie is watching him. They're exchanging looks, and so once again, like the woman is there, and they're very sexual, but is, like a device or something, you know, being used in this this game.
You guys notice that, like, he reaches down for his binoculars. I thought he was pulling his dick out. And then he lifts them up. This is the horniest movie. That's why I remember thinking it was like a kid's movie. No, I mean, yes, but like wow. Would not have been surprised if he did.
It is because like there's a lot of comedy and like gross stuff that kids like, but it's the edge masteriest movie I have ever seen.
Yes.
Like no one comes to completion in the entire movie. Fucking Jerry can't even finish a piece of fruit without saying, no, I don't deserve the whole thing. He just throws it on the ground. Like, no one can just, like, get fully engorged and out.
The way he bites that apple, though, is fascinating, because core and everything, there's just a moon-like sliver of apple left that he throws right to Charlie. It's, it reminded me a lot, actually, of the way that Armie Hammer's character eats in Call Me by Your Name, like this like ravenous way of eating.
Yeah, he ate that apple like there was a load on it. I got you. Yeah. There's this.
It's funny. I was thinking
that's how my dad got me to eat vegetables when I was a kid.
I was thinking of the way he eats the egg, the way he like slurps the egg and then downs the orange juice. I totally forgot that he eats the fruit. that wasn't even the reference I was looking at. But yeah, there's that too. Anyway,
but like in Call Me by Your Name, it's like like achieving what you desire is awesome. And in this movie, it's like, oh, don't think about it, do half of it. But don't ever go the whole way. Or Jason will come out, and then Peter Cushing will get mad. What's his name? Peter Vincent, sorry. Peter Vincent.
So there's a parallel here with the anti-gay propaganda that had been kind of surfacing before the AIDS eruption, right? In the 1960s, there were these PSAs, the Boys Beware PSAs. So Google Boys Beware. But it's basically, it teaches boys not to get in the car with a stranger, but really it's about like hitchhiking, which is really cruising, right? Which is looking for gay sex in public. And what it is it emphasizes to not trust a friendly male stranger, basically. And Jerry Dandridge is the ultimate stranger danger. Like he and Charlie's drawn to him in a way that people, I think, have been warned, or men, especially like young men, were up until that point warned not to, or to recognize that draw and to beware. And so he's really just the embodiment of that boogeyman that's kind of been around for a couple decades at that point.
And we ultimately see that when him and Ed, I will not say Evil Ed because Evil Ed does not like that, when Jerry opens up his coat in the alleyway and says, come on in. And he's like, you know what? This is probably better than what I would like, what my life would be without coming into the coat. So I'll do it. And then, all right, I now have like a younger soul.
Yeah, Jerry doesn't bite Ed. He invites him into his coat like he's J-Lo and Hustlers. You know what I mean? Just like this fully just wraps around him and gives him a feeling, I think, because what he's offering is so much more than just being a vampire. He is what is seen as, and even when you look at the camera and the way that that Ed is positioned as down and he's up and he reaches out his hand, this is a predator. It's being filmed as a predator who is offering solace to like a wayward youth. And again, it's a stereotype. You know, it's a fear that is prevalent in Reagan era families.
Would you say that like so Jerry is he's playing the role of this like stereotype, this like fear-mongering figure. Do you think that the movie is trying to flip that on its head at all, or do you think he is just the thing itself?
You know, I don't actually know that the movie's intention is that. I think it's really interesting kind of like to think about the creation of Freddy Krueger in the mid-'80s. And how the covers of tabloids, like they were all covered with celebrities who were wasting away in hospital beds. Those were the number one stories. So you couldn't escape skin and hollowed out eyes that looked like Freddy. And then all of a sudden we have Freddy, who looks like the embodiment of the very thing, the boogeyman that haunts the National Enquirer and the World Weekly News. You know, now did they make Freddy like that on purpose? No, they were like, hey, he looks like a pizza. But when you have a public consciousness of something that is so much bigger and darker, and you're not allowed to talk about it, but it is everywhere. It permeates everything. How can you not? So yeah, this movie doesn't give me like on purpose vibes. I think it's actually just playing with the very real fears of the people of that time.
Just like a zeitgeist kind of deal.
There
also
have to be some
interesting-
intentional things, right?
Yeah, it feels but then that's the other funny thing about, like Freudian shit. Like it's totally
Right.
possible that the director or whatever could have been like, oh no, I didn't I wouldn't. But it's also interesting that oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I mean, you were talking about Amy and the actor coming out in real life, and it's interesting even thinking about Evil Ed,
Yeah.
How actors who are later outed as queer can bring something different to a film, I mean, my gaydar was going off as soon as I saw him, and then it was like, oh, right, that's Stephen Jeffries,
Yeah.
There's a lot to unpack there.
And then just like even attracted to these roles in a way that like he can't explain back then. Maybe he's like, no, I want to do Fright Night. Why? I don't know yet, but let me be this character, and maybe I will one day. But like it's all like you can just feel that it's all there. Like where I get to be this person who has to deal with this stuff.
Or is it the other way around? I mean, we've been casting queer people as villains for so long. So like, look, I'm just going to break it down really quick in one or two sentences, but Hays Code happens in the 1930s to like have there be censorship, right? So queer people aren't allowed to exist as characters. So what happens? They have to code them as something else. The only way queer identity could exist on screen was if that person was a villain or a monster. So whether it's Dracula's Daughter in 1936 and she's a lesbian presenting vampire or bisexual, or it's Caged where it's an explicit butch lesbian, and that kind of gives people the idea of, oh, this is what queer people are. At a certain point, we culturally became trained to expect our villains to be queer. All you have to do is look at Disney movies to know that. Jafar is not straight. Ursula is a fucking drag queen. If you look at even just our kids' movies on the most basic levels, we have people diverting from gender norms, and that is to signify that they are evil. And when you look at Evil Ed, who is an outsider, and he's a little bit femme, and there's something there between him and Jerry when Jerry puts his hand out and pulls him up, that to me doesn't feel like accidental casting. That to me feels like the byproduct of what is bred in us for decades when it comes to how we cast villains.
Sam.
For
sure. Tompkins, go.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think it's also interesting that this movie is sort of about, like, this seductive figure moving into the suburbs. Like, the setting is very suburban. Yes. And I think that has a lot to do with that. It's like this guy, Tompkins. Jerry, is someone you could totally picture in, like, New York City or something. But now he's, right next door to your own home.
Yeah, and keep in mind that like the two kids, Charlie and Ed, only had pop culture, right? And then now we have like this life experience that we could possibly have, and then they're drawn to it,
Plus that trench coat, obviously New York.
Yeah. The scarf too. I do like the scarf.
Oh, I was also going to say in terms of like sort of I'm not sure if this is necessarily queer coding, but one moment that I found interesting is that the mom, who's like totally oblivious, says like, "Oh, he has a live-in carpenter."
I was screaming.
Yeah. Which is it's like, oh, they're two confirmed bachelors,
Yeah, like when you see Kristen Stewart and they're like gal pal cuddling up on the beach, and the picture's like them like eating each other out,
Yeah.
Yeah, and the rest of her sentence is like, I hope he's not gay.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that she's like, with my luck, he's probably gay.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
But still, like, takes the risk and says, hey, come into my house, because she's the homeowner. They make careful to say, like, the homeowner has to invite the vampire into the house.
Very specific there.
Yeah.
That's like some 50 Shades of Grey clause contract shit.
The vampires will call the lawyers, call the realtors, and make sure, oh, no, this is the homeowner. I will come in. And she was, so it worked.
Another moment between Ed and Charlie is when it's at the very beginning. The girlfriend Amy is mad at Charlie, and they're talking, and Ed says something like, "Oh, what's the matter? Did she find out how you really are?" And that was like kind of strange to me because in 1985, I feel like they would have been much more likely to just use a slur or something. It's not like you needed to be subtle in your like gay bashing at that point, but that particular phrasing I thought was really interesting.
But yeah, like that's why I went back to the pop culture thing, is that Charlie knows some about pop culture. He dabbles in horror, and Ed is a professional. Like, Ed knows all about the genre. So I feel like Ed is a step ahead of everyone, whether he knows it or not.
You know, when you talk about particular phrasing, it immediately makes me think about when Jerry shows up in his bedroom, in Charlie's bedroom, and says, "Forget about me, and I'll forget about you." He offers him a choice. And what he says is, "I'm going to give you a choice, or something I don't have, a choice." So when you're thinking about a time when to be what's happening in the mid 80s as far as like advertising campaigns go, it's like the warning about AIDS was, if you have sex, you will die. If you have gay sex, you will die. I mean, in 81, it was called GRID, gay-related immune deficiency. It wasn't even AIDS yet. It was all absolutely attached to gay people. And so to say something that I don't have, a choice, it's like there's no going back from AIDS. And when people saw that at that time, it felt like this is your death sentence. And so I see a man who's saying he's telling this kid, like, you can go the other way. You can go away from this path of destruction, basically, but I can't. And there was a moment there that it felt, I don't know, touching, even though he was holding him by the neck.
Yeah. And his face was getting nuts, but like, there's no vampire bite that's like just for the next 10 years, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I can bite you so much where like you'll only be a vampire for 10 years. Like, it's in or out right now. You have this choice.
And they're always talking around it. It feels like they're talking around something for at least at like the 40-minute mark, because that's like, it comes right after that. And he also says, like, they're like, "Oh, you can't murder a vampire, Amy. They're dead, remember?" And that reminds me of just the way that legally we justify gay panic. It's like, well, okay, you can't. I mean, it's to dehumanize somebody, right? Like, you can't murder him because he's already a monster. You can't hurt these people because they're already other. And that's the rhetoric that's anti-gay rhetoric of the time. It's like, you can't not. So while maybe a straight audience member might be sitting there just totally like, okay, that feels a little weird, but or maybe not. Maybe it's just a joke. For a queer audience member, you can't not hear that, you know?
Yeah.
And then, of course, then there's the he'd suck his way through the whole town line. Yeah. And it's like, all right, we all agree on that, though, right?
Yeah. I will say, if I hadn't been thinking consciously of that lens, just as a straight person, I think this is all stuff I could have easily missed in something where, now that I've thought of it, it feels so obvious, which I think is a very interesting phenomenon in especially like older like 80s movies, is this mix of like so obvious you couldn't possibly miss it, and yet everyone does, unless you are.
But everybody does.
Yeah.
Well, that's why I love the 80s so much for horror, because it's so rich with this. You know, if we talk about like Universal monsters, for example, and James Whale being queer and making Frankenstein, he did feel other. He makes this monster, and okay, I get it. But something interesting happens in the 80s where everybody feared the same thing. And so it comes out in so many weird ways, whether it's intentional or not. Now, a lot of it is, right? But a lot of it's just there. And that's why horror is so fun to unpack, especially slashers. I mean, this isn't a slasher, but body count films. You know, young people having sex and dying.
And watching this movie, 35 years later after it came out, there was I was going through some shit of like, what is intentional, what is not. But at a certain point, let's say 30 years, what it is what it is. Like, it doesn't matter what was intentional. This means this now, because this is how society has changed, and this is how it's going to be taken.
Yeah, I think that's like the nature of horror. It's the primary emotion that they're working with is fear, and I think even when you're crafting something fear-based, you're not going to be able to neatly untangle why exactly you fear things. You just kind of know, like, oh, if that happened to me in a nightmare, it would be really scary, that kind of thing. So there are these like really unexamined things that sort of like surpass their own limits.
Or, put in your movie like, oh, later on, 20 years from now, if you're scared of gay people, this doesn't count as that. You can't use this for gay, certain fears. We're just going to say, no, that doesn't count as those fears. It's going to be whatever people are scared of. We're going to take a break. And when we come back, trivia. Trivia. That's right. You heard it. It's trivia time. You guys know how this works. When you know the answer, say your name. That's how you're going to buzz in. Please wait till I'm done with the question. Otherwise, it's rude, and the other person will get a point. Question number 1. What actor is the name Peter Vincent, if not the performance, based on that Roddy McDowall gives? Not a well-written question. Sam, no, you did. I was done.
Vincent Price. Was it?
Sam. That is correct. There's another... answer of Peter Cushing, but it's Vincent Price. Come on. Peter Vincent has a real-life movie prop in his apartment from what film franchise?
Tompkins. Star Wars.
Incorrect.
Yeah, that's... Nope.
Ryan. Planet of the Apes. Roddy McDowall was Cornelius. Roddy McDowall in part took the role of Peter Vincent because he had never played a character that old before. Peter Vincent was 60. How old was Roddy McDowall at the time?
Tompkins.
I'm
going to say 35.
In Fright Night. Incorrect. Sam?
45.
He was 57 years old and was nervous about playing 60. The neighborhood of Fright Night is the same famous neighborhood from this 1980s Tom Hanks classic.
Tompkins. The Money Pit?
That is incorrect. Samuel.
Big.
That is incorrect. It is
Damn
The
it.
Burbs.
Oh! The Burbs.
Jonathan Stark plays the vampire's right-hand man, Billy Cole, who helps his boss murder his victims. Name another movie where a character named Billy Cole uses his right hand to murder people, this time on a football field.
Tompkins.
The
last cowboy. What the fucking movie with the Bruce Willis?
Is it The Last Boy Scout?
The Last Boy Scout.
Hints right now.
Yes. The Last Boy Scout. I just remembered.
Sam. Tom Holland had to rewrite his script in order to fit in which character who was not in the original draft?
Sam.
Evil
Ed?
That is incorrect.
Tompkins. Peter Vincent.
Wait, is that your answer?
Yeah, he had to add Tompkins.
I thought you were wonderful. What's your answer?
Peter Vincent.
That is incorrect. It's Amy. He was like, oh, I forgot a girl. Tom Holland is the name of the director of this movie. What is the name of the best Spider-Man?
Tompkins. Tom Holland.
That is incorrect.
Oh.
Sam? Yeah, no, it's Tom Holland.
That is incorrect.
He's so cute and charismatic.
It's the guy from New Girl from Into the Spider-Verse.
Right.
In the sequel to Fright Night, what was the name of the sequel to Evil Ed?
Tompkins. Malicious Med.
I'm sorry, Malicious Med?
Med.
His first name is Med?
Yep.
What is that short for?
Medrick.
Sam?
Wow. I wanted that to be Malicious Melissa, so I'm going to go with that.
It's Evil Ed 2, Ed by Dawn. In the sequel to Fright Night... what was the name of the sequel to Jerry Dandridge?
Sam?
Two
Jerry, two Dandridge.
Oh, I want to give you a point for that, but that is wrong.
Tompkins. Jerry Dandruff?
He obviously died in the first movie. Guys, please watch the movie that we're covering tonight. Fright Night star William Ragsdale went on to star in what hit Fox show?
Tompkins. Family Guy.
Incorrect.
Sam?
New
Girl. I know you like that one.
I hate how it still sounds like an insult. No, it was called Herman's Head. What Pixar movie is a direct ripoff of Herman's Head?
Tompkins.
Sam?
Tompkins.
Toys? Toy Story?
Toys, the Robin Williams movie, is
Toy Story.
not. Toy Story is incorrect. Sam?
That one where the dinosaur gets high with a baby.
The Good Dinosaur, underrated Pixar classic. But no, this is Herman's Head was about 4 people inside of this one person's head.
Tompkins.
Tompkins.
Wow.
Inside Out.
Oh my God. It's Inside Out. Tompkins. Number 12. What is the name of the Playboy-funded erotic anthology movie from 1991?
Tompkins. I couldn't remember
Tompkins?
my own name. I'm not confident about this one. Fright. Fright naked girl, and she's looking good.
So once again, you give no shits about podcasting and making good content. You just said your name with no answer, and then we all had to sit there and watch that shit. Yeah, that's what happened. All right, so Sam, it's up to you. But let me remind you that the answer to the last question was Inside Out. Sam, go ahead.
Oh, well, shit. I was going to say Silk Stockings, like one of those fucking Showtime things. But Inside Out doesn't have anything to do with those except when you put them on wrong.
So what is your answer?
Silk Stockings, that's all I got.
Ryan. It was called Inside Out. Is there a single...
Wow.
Is there a single fucking movie or TV show that Inside Out, that piece of shit Pixar movie that nobody likes, did not rip off?
Tompkins.
Tompkins.
No.
Incorrect. Sam?
Silk Stockings.
It did not rip off Silk Stockings. That is correct. But no, they're like, I only had 2 examples. There's dozens of things that Inside Out did not rip off. In a class action lawsuit just recently settled against Pixar for creating Inside Out and ripping off basically every movie and TV show of all time, the judge has dictated that we each get to take one thing from Pixar and make it our own. What do you choose?
Tompkins.
Tompkins.
CGI animation.
Oh, shit. That's going to be a moneymaker for you, bro. Tompkins. Sam, you want to... I was thinking like a toy Woody, but Tompkins just... took over the world. Sam,
you
want
to first, man.
Go?
I mean, that is the best answer, but I would just want to take anything and make it gay. Just one fucking... Yeah. That dinosaur that gets high with a baby, but gay.
Sam. How many Pixar movies are actually better than Inside Out?
Tompkins.
Tompkins.
All the rest of them.
Incorrect. There's
Except
an actual number
Cars
here.
2 and Cars 3 and Planes.
Planes is not Pixar, you fucking stupid son of a bitch. Sam, go ahead.
You're going to hate me, but 0. It's so good, and we need to teach kids how to emote, especially young men.
The correct answer is 4. We're going to go back. We're going to go back and forth, starting with Tompkins. Name them. If you say the correct one, you get a point. If you say the wrong one, your opponent gets the point. Tompkins, go.
Toy Story.
Tompkins. Sam?
Toy Story 2.
Sam. Tompkins?
Toy Story 3.
Sam. Sam?
That one where the dinosaur gets high with a baby.
Fucking Sam. Freeze the room. No. 2 more left. Tompkins, go.
Up.
Sam. Sam.
Wall-E.
Sam. 1 more. Tompkins, what is it?
I know this. I know all of them. They're Pixar movies. I love these ones.
Take a bunch of time.
They have so many good ones. I'm gonna say A Bug's Life.
Sam. Sam, last chance. What is it?
Ants. I'm just kidding. Wreck-It Ralph.
Also not Pixar.
Oh,
not
really?
Pixar.
Yep.
Damn, that was my joke, but it wasn't a joke.
The answer is Finding Nemo. Inside Out is the 5th best Pixar movie. When we come back, more Fright Night. Back to Fright Night. The back half of this movie has become famous for its practical effects, designed in part by Steve Johnson and Randy Cook. And Tompkins, I got to say that I thought Day of the Dead was going to destroy this season. You know, like it was just going to be like the clear thing. But I don't know. Last 40 minutes of this movie has a lot of stuff. Does Fright Night earn this reputation? And which shots or scenes still hold up the best today?
I think I would put Day of the Dead above this in terms of practical effects, just because Day of the Dead is like the thing, and Day of the Dead are kind of almost on par to me.
It's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. And this, I think, was a little bit more hit or miss with the practical effects. Like, we talked in Day of the Dead about, like, you know, that it's sort of like watching a close-up magician. And in this, there were definitely moments where it was, like, too much, like, oh, I know exactly what you're doing. You know, like, when the evil henchman guy is melting, and there's a scene where it's clearly, like, they just dropped chicken bones onto the stairs from above frame. And that felt
also,
a little sloppy. If
you were confused as to like what kind of monster or person that guy was, just wait till he dies, and you're gonna have so many more questions. Yeah. Like he just like diarrhea Slimer, and I don't know what is going on. All right, so let's get to Ed. I think that Evil Ed is the big one, right?
Yeah.
Evil Ed's transformation, I think, is like one of the best I've ever seen. I love the cross to the forehead that has goo come off of it as they pull the cross off, and then we have a guy transforming in front of us. Did you guys were you guys in the movie when that happened, where you're like, oh yeah, this is real and I love it? Did you guys stop and think, I'm still enjoying this, but I do want to know how they did it? Or were you guys like, this is bullshit and I hate it?
I was fully on board for the Ed transformation. There were a couple when it's so nitpicky, but like when the dog, when he's in his wolf form and it's like crawling away, that felt a little bit. But then the actual transformation itself, I thought was like, yeah, I was into it.
It's strange for me to be nostalgic for something that isn't working, because I'm like, I'm watching it and I'm seeing like the wolf's eyes turn red, for example, just like an animated cartoon eye. And then I'm like, but then I'm like, oh man, I really missed this, you know, or during, you know, Evil Ed's transformation, I'm sitting there looking at the makeup and I'm like, fuck, here it is. Like it's practical. We need more practical effects, because whenever I watch CG makeup or CG effects, all I think is that doesn't look real. But hey, I mean, like, if I'm being fair, I think the same thing with practical effects. I just like practical better.
Yeah. First of all, we're not going to see it again. And that's what, like, you know, like, nobody's ever going to choose to do it that way ever again. And
right.
Second of all, you can feel them trying their best. You know, like, there's so much of this movie that's, like, sort of, you know, 14-year-olds that got their parents' camera filming in the backyard. And I like, it's so endearing in that way, you know?
When they do, like, the earnestness of each moment.
Yeah, yes. When they do, like, the first-person shots to try and, like, signal that he's turned into a bat, that kind of thing, and then, like, the camera lands in the bushes, and then he gets it's very, like,
Tompkins.
I love that
fucking
stuff.
loved that.
Yeah.
It's very much like in between shots, so like in between a cut, you can hear the neighbor start complaining, and then it cuts out, and then it moves to the next shot. Like, that's all of these, like, homemade movies. You can feel that in there.
Yeah.
Some Karen running down the street, like, get your werewolf out of my backyard.
And talking about, like, you know, CGI, like, I really do think that the only effect, at least in a horror movie, that should be used is practical, because again, like, it plays into the feeling of, like, suspense. It plays into the, you know, if I'm watching the same thing but it's all CGI, I'm not playing the game of, like, oh, how did they do that? How is that's so interesting? The answer is a computer did it.
Yeah.
Well, I can't think of one time when I've seen, like, a CGI injury or, like, wound or anything and gone, ooh.
Yeah.
We don't have that physical response because it doesn't feel like there's any sort of physicality to what we're looking at. And it's just a brain reaction where even with a practical effect, even when I know that the blood isn't real, I'm looking at physical blood leave a body. And that has an effect on me as a horror viewer. And this movie has a lot of that, like a lot of gross. And I love when like the green slime hits the floor. Just like, it's just the small details like that that make it feel like a world that's actually living and breathing.
Yeah.
And like I think it's hard to ignore that like they really did a good job of postponing that until the last possible moment. Like they really held off on giving us that, and then they also tried hard on the other stuff. Like I do think that I'm so sorry, Tompkins. What is it called?
Day of the Dead.
Day of the Dead is probably a better movie all in all, but this movie had a lot of patience, and it was like, actually, let's just work on characters right now. Let's just work on slow playing this, and then they really gave it to us. But that amount of confidence, like I really do like.
Yeah.
And on the note about the bat, I mean, it's like, because that first person thing, I mean, which I loved. The second a wolf showed up, I was like, they fucking had an animal on set? They had animal money? Because, I was thinking there's no fucking way that's the movie I'm getting because it speaks to the patience that you're talking about. They delay the pleasure of those horror moments. And I appreciate that.
And if you listen closely in some of like the scenes at high school, you can hear somebody in the background going like, let's get the wolf. And then somebody else says like, not yet. Relax. We're going to do it later. There's no wolves in high school.
Also, one of the best effects are just the fangs and the long fingers. And those are one of the few things that you get early. And it's so good. I mean, in that scene we talked about where, where Charlie's eavesdropping on Jerry. And then you first see those fingers, and it doesn't like. It's so like they're the perfect length to just be like odd and creepy. They're not. If they were any longer, it wouldn't work. If they were any shorter, it wouldn't work. And then just seeing them, I love that, and it's just such a simple little thing, but it's done so well.
So I hate that. And I'm going to tell you why. Only because for me, it was just like such obvious femphobia. Because like the very first time the fingernails are revealed, they're revealed as being weird. That's the signifier. Not that they're like dead or anything. He's like caressing her body. And it's like, that dude's got long nails. And the second time we see them, he's in that club. And then the long nails show up. And the security guard's reaction, he calls for help. This guy's got long nails. I need backup. It's like
classic
okay.
Security calling for security.
I mean, not enough to me had been revealed that he was a vampire that this guy would be like screaming. It really was the reaction to difference and the reaction to that like feminine but like reclaimed as monstrous trait.
Yeah,
but like
that's
when
fair.
you're gonna,
but I get it. No, but you're right.
Gonna make
they
a vampire
cool.
thing.
Yeah.
You have to decide if when our vampires or when our people like look like vampires, are they still going to be sexy or are they going to not? And I like this movie because they chose not sexy. Like even in Buffy, which I just started and I'm trying to get through the TV series. I wouldn't say that's sexy, but like it gives them more power. Like they really think that they look sexy. But with this movie,
I still want to bang Spike for sure.
Yeah.
Well, sure. I mean.
I don't care if his
hair.
face is fucked up or not. Are you kidding? That accent?
But for so many of these vampires, like this movie chose to go ugly, and then so many of the vampires are like, don't look at me. Even though I'm trying to intimidate you, please don't see my ugliness right now. And it gets ugly. Like their mouths get huge and the teeth go crazy.
Yeah, that full mouth of ugly teeth on Evil Ed, I couldn't. It was so funny. I love, but they. In all fairness, the vampires are when they're trying to be like seductive, they don't get super ugly yet. You know, like they're hot enough that you still want to fuck daddy next door. You know what I mean? But like by the time you get to like, that wonky mouth, all right, maybe not. I don't want that anywhere near me.
Yeah.
And honestly, I'm okay with like super sharp, monstrous fangs if you at some point put in a retainer. But they're going everywhere. Like they are pointing every which direction.
Yeah, where's your night guard?
Yeah. You should be putting in something when you sleep.
Yeah, I'm also wondering, like, this idea of like femme coat with like the long, the nails specifically, but the fingers too are also sort of like elongated so that they're the appearance is more slender, I guess. But like, I think that there's something there too about like it kind of makes me think of like Prince, this like incredibly seductive figure who also is like not traditionally masculine, you know, and like the discomfort that obviously causes in you know, lamos. And
no,
so it's
and
interesting,
especially in the 80s.
Yeah, and
so
in that
David Bowie, and you've got
yeah, and in that scene specifically where it's like a bi-curious kind of thing, I think that's interesting. But then, yeah, I guess I would not have on my own made the connection of it being, like femme coding or whatever. But
see,
I think you're
can
right.
Already
yeah.
hear I can already hear like some straight listener at home right now going, "What the fuck, dude? Long nails? That doesn't mean gay or whatever." But here's the deal. It's not just the nails being long that's gay. It's the way the camera presents it. It's the horror of the reveal that this man has those nails. That's the signifier. That's the femphobia I'm talking about. And
it's the exact same camera shot of American Werewolf in London, his foot stretching out and becoming a monster. That's the same thing with just now having long nails.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the roots of homophobia really is femphobia. We wouldn't be homophobic if we weren't misogynistic first, you know, and if we were acceptable, if we accepted female traits as being desirable, not just sexualized, but actually women as equals, then we wouldn't be afraid of them in ourselves, you know, and this movie constantly rides that line. And I appreciate that. His trench coat is almost a dress.
Well,
but
and
yes
also
to nails.
Yeah, and that moment is right where it's horror and seduction like directly put up against each other. So you see the joint appeal and distaste for it that, like, you know, your standard middle American might have.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I do think that it's hard. Like, I don't know if the director did a good job, like, you know, Hitchcocky and tense scenes, but I do know that he did a very good job of, like, if you, I don't care what your affiliation is, do not find Chris Sarandon enticing. If you don't want to, like, go hug him a little bit and hang out with him and maybe be in his jacket, then you're fucking lying. I do not care who you are. You know, like, I'm in.
Yeah.
And because it's like whether you want to or not, the camera's about to sexualize him.
Right,
so
exactly.
Yeah.
And if you're not okay with your sexuality, you are okay with your movie training enough to know what a camera means, and you know that, like, this is where the camera is leading me. Oh, shit, gentlemen, it is the speed round. Here we go. You do not have to say your name after these questions. Common mistake. Do you guys wish we still had hosts of late-night horror movies?
Yes.
Tompkins.
So how would that work? Would we turn on a horror movie on Netflix that's like from the 60s, nobody heard of, and then we have like a little intro and outro?
I would do it.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think it should be a drag queen. Like, I miss Elvira, and so what I want is like horror host drag queen. I want that camp and cheese and fun. I don't want just some dude coming out and introing something.
Yeah.
How often do you guys want your Netflix movie interrupted by this drag queen?
Constantly.
Yeah.
every 2 minutes?
Yeah. I honestly walk in front of it.
Yeah. I want like the full Mystery Science Theater 3000.
Yeah.
Sam Tompkins.
What exactly does Peter Vincent regain faith in?
The sun.
That's a tough one.
S-U-N or S-O-N? Yes, Tompkins?
Oh, sorry. That's a tough one for me because I don't think it means like faith. There's nothing in the movie before that makes it feel like this is going to take that turn. And so the closest I could come up with is that it's like faith in this entire like horror movie monster thing he's built his career on. But then it's also weird that comes at the moment where it's like, well, he kind of needs faith the least now. Like he's had so much proof that these are in fact vampires that I don't know how it's faith even then.
No, yes, but no. Like, what gets weird about it is that they have that moment where where Jerry's like, "No, it's not faith. You don't have faith." And it's like, What? We've already seen it work. How could he not have faith in it? Because he knows that it works. That's bonkers. And then it does, like, the only thing that doesn't actually work at the end. It really is. When I said the sun, it's a joke, but it's also not. That's
all right.
Fucking it.
So I think that's going to lead me to question 3. Does this movie get all of the rules of vampire, right? Like, eventually, like, the script just cheats, right?
Sam.
In order to finish it up, does the script just, like, be like, I don't care. Like, we're already at 97 minutes. Let's get out of here.
It does pretty good.
No?
Wait.
All right. We already hit on this one, but I'm going to give you guys both a chance to sound off. What specifically, to you, makes Jerry so seductive?
That chin. He smiles, and it's the shape of his face. I would say yes to anything he asked.
Can I say real quick, Tompkins,
Sam.
before you go, that the reason he got his last name is because he was born with it. The reason Susan has that last name is because she married this guy, and of course she did.
Yep.
I'm a big Susan Sarandon fan, and of course she did.
Yeah.
Tompkins, why is he so seductive?
He like, it's hard not to think of his role in Princess Bride here too, because he's playing like very similar roles, but he's like an awful Prince Charming. He's like, you know, he has all of the charisma and the etiquette of like a refined, sophisticated, you know, princely type, but you just know that he wants to like fuck you up underneath it the whole
Tompkins.
time. And I think that is very appealing.
It's how you've lived your entire life.
Yeah.
One more actual layer to it, though. He's cruising constantly. Like, Jerry doesn't stand down. He makes eye contact and he doesn't let go. And in the 80s, if a dude did that to you, it meant he was trying to fuck you. And so Jerry he really is unafraid to let people know that he wants them.
Yeah.
Fuck, that is. I don't have that, guys. I do not have that trait. Next one. Is the secret to not being an annoying Scream knockoff to just come out 10 years before Scream?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sam.
Next up, what do you guys think that we're saying here about suburban life? We talked about a lot of things that this movie is commenting on. But what about the fact that this movie not only took place in the same neighborhood as the Burbs, but it's in the Burbs? Why? Why not the big city?
Because the heteronormative family structure is being threatened.
Yeah.
Sam.
I also think one other reason is that so many of the famous like Halloween were taking place in this setting. And so I think it was also partially a move to take, you know, like, rather than going to Dracula's castle, a faraway exotic place, to bring that into a suburban space.
Yeah, and like before this, all of this stuff was happening in, like, let's say New York City, and everybody in New York was like, who gives a shit, dude? Like, there are 17 people just like you that way, you know, like, we don't need this. And then when you put one of these others in the suburbs, everyone gets in a tizzy. Like, now this is where we have drama. Last one, who's better at dancing? Amy and Jerry in the club, or that one girl at the end of Friday the 13th 5, A New Beginning, who listens to one album and just does a solid robot the entire time?
I gotta give it to my girl in Friday the 13th Part 5. She is rocking those dance moves. And
I give nothing
on stamina
to Part 5
alone.
ever, so.
Sam.
I feel like Tompkins knew how to answer that one and chose differently. When we come back, we're going to hand out some awards. Now, Sam, correct me if I'm wrong. You are the expert here, but Fright Night was nominated for 0 Academy Awards.
That is correct. I don't know. Actually, I think it was nominated for all of them.
Every single one.
Every one of them.
And then Golden Globes, probably 0. Tonys. Swept the Tonys that year, which
Yeah.
was crazy. Like,
Yeah, it was wild.
It's got an
For a
EGOT.
movie
Good
with
for that.
very little music. I mean, really.
So what we're going to do is we're going to hand it 5 awards right now, but I'm not sure which awards it's going to get. It's up to you guys. We're going to first start with the award called Brave Little Hoster. Who was the bravest host? And, I mean, like, your options are Peter Vincent, me. You know, you have so many options. Tompkins, you're first. Brave Little Hoster.
Well, I happen to know a host who picked a very scary movie when he didn't have to, and who had a guest who we've never had on before, and who really knows his shit. And as a host, I think that's tough. So I, of course, have to nominate my good friend Ryan for the Brave Little Hoster Award.
I did not expect that. This is crazy. Okay, so just me in general.
Mm-hmm.
Sam, what do you think?
This is like such a not. Wow, that's so sweet, you guys. I'm sorry, but that's really nice. But also, that makes me the scary vampire, which I'm comfortable with. I would say, look, this is like not even the right answer, but I keep thinking Elvira because I just wish that like Vincent Price's character was actually Elvira. That would have been so fucking awesome because she is constantly just putting out sexuality and owning who she is, and so she's bravery is a part of who she is.
Tompkins. All right. Your next one is I was shocked to see this award on the memo because, believe it or not, I had never seen Fright Night before, and I did not know the legend of Evil Ed. This guy he puts his thumbprint on a movie in a way that like I did not expect for like an 80s sidekick. Guys, what is, and Sam, we're going to start with you. What is your evilest, eddiest moment?
I think that when he found that Raggedy Ann wig somehow and thought that it would be a convincing double for his mother. That was a pretty fantastic bundle of yarn.
That's pretty good. Why would he think that was his mom, Tompkins?
There's no way. There's no world that anybody would think that.
Tompkins, where are we going?
The logic that I'm operating under here is that anything Evil Ed has done before he turns is going to be more evil than anything he has done after, because afterwards he is under the sway of a vampire, and I would argue less responsible for his own actions. And so my evilest, eddiest moment is when he fakes getting attacked in the alleyway just before he gets attacked, because my God, do I hate when people do that. They are weaponizing my own empathy against me.
That's good.
Hate when people are like, "Oh, I'm injured," and then they do whatever stupid thing. It is the most evil thing you can do, and he did it.
So, a couple things here.
Mm-hmm.
One, Sam, I thought yours was great. Like, he just took, he found a red mop, took the thing off and put it on his head, and everybody believed it. Second thing, Tompkins is specifically talking about me right now and how much he hates everything I do to him.
I will say that, unlike Sam, I don't think that having red hair makes you more evil, which I believe is the implication.
Sam.
That's definitely Sam. All right, so Tom Holland, non-Spider-Man Tom Holland. Have you guys ever seen another Tom Holland movie before?
Yeah, Chucky.
Yeah.
Or Child's Play.
Yeah, I saw Child's Play once forever ago.
But was that directing or just screenplay?
Well, that's directing.
Okay, so
Yeah.
he's a famous guy with a lot of movies, but what do you think was the one, like, perfect Tom Holland move? Tompkins, we're starting with you.
We talked about it a bunch already, but I think that the window peeping scene is so good. It's so 80s. It has so much crammed into it. It's just well shot. It has some practical effects going on. It's like well acted. There's text, there's subtext, and that soundtrack, that like 80s guitar riffing over the top of it, is so delicious.
Sam, what do you think?
I was originally going to talk about like thinking long nails are scary because that's the signature for this. But if we're looking at all of it, I would say that it's like it's nailing the cool mom. Like he just the casual way that she offers a Valium to her son is like she's both like mom and like, oh okay mom. And he rides that line in Child's Play too.
Let's not just say that like this gave birth to Scream. This gave birth to Amy Poehler in Mean Girls. Like this mom is absolutely like you can drink here. I'm a cool mom. But yeah, Tompkins, the way the camera moves with Charlie's eyeline in that window scene is absolutely it. Next one is cringiest moment. This could be taken a couple ways because it's a horror movie. What made you cringe because you were scared? Or cringe because it's 2020 and we watched this movie? Tompkins, starting with you.
All I ever hear is no, right at the beginning was hard on the ears. that was tough. We've been dating for a year and all I ever hear is no, as he is like, yeah, that was like, Biff Tannen in the end of Back to the Future levels there. And it makes it hard to, it's like, oh, I have to root for this guy now, I guess.
Root for the person, yeah.
Yeah. That takes the cake for me.
It's a 1-2 punch because he's like, fuck you. We've been going out for a long time and you're not going to have sex with me. And then she's like, oh, maybe I should. And then he's like, get out of here. I'm going to look out the window. That's a lot of damage right there.
Yeah.
Sam, what do we think? Cringiest moment.
So for me, as much of Evil Ed's transformation that worked, it's that dead glass eye on the other side for no reason. Like, it's not like it's some wonky eye, but they had his makeup covered in it, and it just they tried to put it in the shadow, and I'm like, no, it feels like 1930s Hunchback stuff. Like, it just doesn't work. That never works.
Well, on purpose? Is it a throwback to 1930s movies?
I don't think so. I think it was I hope not. But if it were, then I would say cringiest moment is when Jerry puts his hand up that teenage girl's skirt on the dance floor. My God, how old is she? And he's like 400.
Yeah.
Oh, man,
Also, it feels like the director really forgets. I think that moment made it into its script being like, no, this is like the vampire is bad, he's seducing a much younger woman. But then like the way the camera is operating is not like it's like really gets sucked up into the moment. Yeah.
we just did the Breakfast Club because we're doing 85 and Bender full on like throws his hand up Molly Ringwald's skirt and it's played for laughs. Just like in the mid 80s, isn't this a funny prank? It's like whoopee cushion, hand up the skirt. I don't know. It's all the same, right?
Yep.
Sam.
That's the skirt. All right. Sam, last one. Pound for pound. Performance of the movie. You've got one acting Oscar. Who you're going to give it to?
If it didn't go to Stephen Jeffries, a fucking criminal. Because every line that he gives you just sticks like a piece of spaghetti that's done on a wall. And I think that he also, speaking of pound for pound, had an illustrious career in gay porn.
Yes, he did.
So that followed Fright Night. So we got to give it to him. It all started here.
Did we make it through like a 20-minute segment about like how gay Fright Night is without mentioning that this guy went on to gay porn?
We did.
And this is a performance that I've never seen before because weird sidekicks in movies act like weird sidekicks. But this guy acts like the weird people you knew in your real life. Like the laughing and the interrupting. Like, I've never seen a performance like this. Tompkins, what do you got?
I will throw in Chris Sarandon as Jerry Dandridge in this. He has such immaculate screen presence, and it's just crazy to me that how throughout this movie he has to be evil and seductive in a way. Like by the time that he seduces Amy, like it really does feel like if I was in the room and Jerry Dandridge looked me in the eye and refused to make contact, that's it. I have no he wins. I think it's a very impressive performance. I
love Evil Ed in this movie.
Yeah,
but I'm gonna give it to Tompkins because Chris Sarandon walks into this like fucking Alec Guinness on Star Wars, and he's like, "What is this? What is this bullshit?" I'm still gonna try, I guess. Sure, I'll still fucking knock it out of the park, but I think this is all bullshit. But I'll still do good. So your winners are your brave little hoster is me. Thanks, guys. Your evilest Ed moment is putting a red mop on your head and saying, "I am somebody's mother." Your director's signature moment is the camera during the window. Your cringiest moment is, hey, here's a hand, here's a skirt. And your pound for pound performance is Chris Sarandon. When we come back, I'm going to total up all of the points, and we're going to see if we think that Fright Night can take this whole thing down. So, Sam, let's go through the horror movies that Tompkins and I have done so far. We have done House. How do you feel about House?
Ooh, the one from the 70s? Oh, or the
No.
like the house, like got
The 85, like, with the hand that rings the doorbell, even though that never happens in the movie.
I wish it did, though, right? It's such a cool poster.
Such a good poster.
It's so good they did it twice, because the second one's pretty much that. Yeah, it's not my fave, but I enjoyed it.
We did Day of the Dead.
I like Dawn of the Dead better, but I love Day of the Dead.
We have done Friday the 13th, Part 5, A New Beginning.
Send it back. That's no.
And then we have done Fright Night. Tompkins, where do you think that Fright Night is going to... do you think it's going to do well? Do you think it's like a quality movie?
Yeah, right now, I mean, I do currently put it a little bit below Day of the Dead, but I could see with like a little bit more time, I could see it growing on me and actually like even overtaking it based on what we have so far. Like, I still think Day of the Dead is the favorite, but I wouldn't count out Fright Night. I think it's doing some really, and it just like you were saying, Sam, like there's some great just like 80s nostalgia here, which Day of the Dead really doesn't have.
Yeah, it really wants to kick that nostalgia out of your brain. Like Day of the
Yeah.
Dead, it has no time for that. It's like, we're going to punish you. If you ever think that you're going to relax and watch a fun horror movie, get
Yeah.
the fuck out of here. Well, Sam, while I have you on here, I want to talk about a couple more things. Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
So what about it?
Is it going to win?
I mean, it could, because here's the thing. Nightmare on Elm Street 2, and by the way, this is not even in like the doc, but in the UK, Nightmare on Elm Street 2 came out before Nightmare on Elm Street 1, which is why they call American school buses Freddy buses. So in the UK, Nightmare on Elm Street 2 was the first one, which is why it's so much more successful overseas, where here, Nightmare on Elm Street 2 is the one that doesn't really follow the rules. If you can get down with, like, if you can have a good time with a bad movie, then you will definitely enjoy Nightmare on Elm Street 2.
Phenomenon?
Ooh,
From
the
85?
bug one.
Does that ring
Not
a
John
bell?
Travolta.
No, not that one. That would be awesome, though. Just throw that in
Yes, just do that one instead. That's it.
And then
a quick swap out.
there. Reanimator. I've never seen that movie.
And Barbara
it's a legendary
Crampton's in
movie. Yeah.
Yeah,
that a good one?
She doesn't age, by the way. Just incredible. Reanimator, not for me, but people fucking love it. So,
All right, guys, let's get to the scores. I scored 13 points, which I'm going to say is a record for a host. So I appreciate you guys quietly not clapping. That's super good of you. And then comes Tompkins with 26, twice as many points as I got. Wow. And then Sam, oh, God. Sam, can you help me out dealing with Tompkins after the show? You got 36 points. You beat Tompkins by 10. So congratulations to Sam is what we're supposed to be thinking about, not
I'm
Tompkins'
kissing my bicep.
tantrum. But congratulations, Sam.
Thank you guys so much for having me on.
And thank you so much for coming on the show. Is there anything you want to plug before we get out of here?
Yeah, actually. So that documentary I'm directing, we're doing a Comic-Con panel that's going to air. It'll be online through Comic-Con at home. So, and it's free, and you can hear us talk about queer horror for an hour.
Tompkins, anything you want to plug?
No.
All right. Me neither. Throughout the show, we've been plugging stuff. So I'm just going to wrap this up, and I'm going to hold Tompkins to my chest as hard as I can. Guys, please tune in next week when, and this is quite the reveal, Taylor Wilhite will be on the show to help us discuss Nightmare on Elm Street 2. Until then, keep watching those horror movies.